diamond white, and the cold air stung his cheeks and brought the water to his eyes. But at length the governess's warning, as he explored these forbidden regions, came back to him, and in a series of gigantic bounds that took his breath away completely, he dropped nearer to the earth again, and kept on at a much lower level. The hours passed, and the position of the moon began to alter noticeably. Some of the constellations that were overheard when he started were now dipping below the horizon. Never before had he ventured so far from home, and he began to realize that he had been flying much longer than he knew or intended. The speed had been terrific. The change came imperceptibly. With the discovery that his wings were not moving quite so easily as before, he became suddenly aware that this had really been the case for some little time. He was flying with greater effort, and for a long time this effort had been increasing gradually before he actually recognized the fact. Although no longer pointing towards the earth, he seemed to be sinking. It became increasingly difficult to fly upwards. His wings did not seem to fail or weaken, nor was he conscious of feeling tired, but something was ever persuading him to fly lower, almost as if a million tiny threads were coaxing him downwards, drawing him gradually nearer the world again. Whatever it was, the earth had come much closer to him in the last hour, and its familiar voices were pleasant to hear after the boundless heights he had just left. But for some reason his speed grew insensibly less and less. His wings moved apparently as fast as before, but it was harder to keep up. In spite of himself, he kept sinking. The sensation was quite new, and he could not understand it. It almost seemed as though he were being pulled downwards. Jimbo began to feel uneasy. He had not lost his bearings, but he was a very long way from home, and quite beyond reach of the help he was so accustomed to. With a great effort he mounted several hundred feet into the air, and tried hard to stay there. For a short time he succeeded, but he soon felt himself sinking gradually downwards again. The force drawing him was a constant force, without rise or fall, and with a deadly feeling of fear the boy began to realize that he would soon have to yield to it altogether. His heart beat faster, and his thoughts turned to the friend who was then far away, but who alone could save him. She, at least, could have explained it and told him what best to do, but the governess was beyond his reach. This problem he must face alone. Something, however, had to be done quickly, and Jimbo, acting more as the man than as the boy, turned and flew hurriedly forward in another direction. He hoped this might somehow counteract the force that still drew him downwards, and for a time it apparently did so, and he flew level. But the strain increased every minute, and he looked down with something of a shudder as he realized that before very long he would be obliged to yield to this deadly force and drop. It was then for the first time he noticed a change had come over the surface of the earth below. Instead of the patchwork of field and wood and road, he saw a vast cloud stretching out, white and smooth in the moonlight. The world was hidden beneath a snowy fog, dense and impenetrable. It was no longer even possible to tell in what direction he was flying, for there was nothing to steer by. This was a new and unexpected complication, and the boy could not understand how the change had come about so quickly. For the last time he had glanced down for indications to steer by, everything was clear and easily visible. It was very beautiful, this carpet of white mist, with the silver moon shining above it, but it thrilled him now with an unpleasant sense of dread, and still more unpleasant was a new sound which suddenly broke in upon the stillness, and turned his blood into ice. He was certain that he heard wings behind him. He was being followed, and this meant that it was impossible to turn and fly back. There was nothing now to do but to fly forwards and hope to distance the huge wings, but if he was being followed by the powerful flyer he had seen a few nights before, the boy knew that he stood little chance of success, and he did it because it seemed the only thing possible. The cloud was dense and chill as he entered it. Its moisture clung to his wings and made them heavy. His muscles seemed to stiffen, and motion became more and more difficult. The wings behind him, meanwhile, came closer. He was flying along the surface of the mist now, his body and wings hidden, and his head just above the level. He could see along its white even top. If he sank a few more inches it would be impossible to see at all, or even to judge where he was going. Soon it rose level with his lips, and at the same time he noticed a new smell in the air, faint at first, but growing every moment stronger. It was a fresh, sweet odour, yet it somehow added to his alarm and stirred in him new centres of uneasiness. He tried vainly to increase his speed and distance the wings which continued to gain so steadily upon him from behind. The cloud apparently was not everywhere of the same density, for here and there he saw the tops of green hills below him as he flew, but he could not understand why each green hill seemed to have a little lake on its summit, a little lake in which the reflected moon stared straight up into his face. Nor could he quite make out what the sounds were which rose to his ears through the muffling of the cloud, sounds of tumultuous rushing, hissing and tumbling. They were continuous, these sounds, and once or twice he thought he heard with them a deep thunderous roar that almost made his heart stop beating as he listened. Was he perhaps over a range of high mountains, and was this the sound of the tumbling torrents? Then suddenly it came to him with a shock that the ordinary sounds of the earth had wholly ceased. Jimbo felt his head beginning to whirl. He grew weaker every minute, less able to offer resistance to the remorseless forces that were sucking him down. Now the mist had closed over his head, and he could no longer see the moonlight. He turned again, shaking with terror, and drove forward headlong through the clinging vapour. A sensation of choking rose in his throat. He was tired out, ready to drop with exhaustion. The wings of the following creature were now so close that he thought every minute he would be seized from behind and plunged into the abyss to his death. It was just then that he made the awful discovery that the world below him was not stationary. The green hills were moving. They were sweeping past with a rushing, thundering sound in regular procession, and their huge sides were streaked up with white. The reflection of the moon leaped up into his face as each hill rolled hissing and gurgling by, and he knew at last with a shock of unutterable horror that it was the sea. He was flying over the sea, and the waters were drawing him down. The immense green waves that rolled along through the sea fog, carrying the moon's face on their crests, foaming and gurgling as they went, were already leaping up to seize him by the feet and drag him into their depths. He dropped several feet deeper into the mist and towards the sea, terror-stricken and blinded. Then, turning frantically, not knowing what else to do, he struck out with his last strength for the upper surface and the moonlight. But as he did so, turning his face towards the sky, he saw a dark form hovering just above him, covering his retreat with huge outstretched wings. It was too late. He was hemmed in on all sides. At that moment a huge rolling wave, bigger than all the rest, swept past and wet him to the knees. His heart failed him. The next wave would cover him. Already